The sound of bank manager Linda Voss's high heels echoed rhythmically on the polished marble floor, each step a commanding drumbeat resonating through the hushed stillness of Apex Trust's central branch. She paused before the teller window, her icy gaze piercing through the black woman standing there, holding a carefully filled-out withdrawal slip. "I'm sorry," Linda began, her voice smooth but laced with an unmistakable undertone of disdain. "We can't just hand out cash to anyone who walks in here." She slid the slip back through the glass partition, her manicured red nails barely brushing its edge, as if it were something too trivial to merit her full attention. "Especially not for an amount this large," she added, her tone rising as though delivering an indisputable truth. Around them, the air in the lobby thickened with tension. A cluster of employees had gathered nearby, forming a small circle like spectators at a gladiatorial match, awaiting the drama about to unfold. A young woman with her hair tied high leaned in to whisper to her colleague, her voice just loud enough to carry, "Look at her. Does she even seem like someone who'd have that kind of money?" A ripple of stifled laughter spread through the group, sharp and cutting, slicing through the lobby's quiet. A bespectacled man holding a coffee cup smirked, his eyes raking over the black woman from head to toe. Her simple outfit, the slightly worn strap of her handbag, her unbranded shoes, as if her appearance alone told him everything he needed to know. That woman, Monique Jackson, stood there, her back straight, her face eerily calm despite the silent fury building within her with every passing second. Her hands gripped the strap of her bag tightly, yet not a tremble betrayed her, an astonishing display of restraint before the probing stares and unabashed whispers. These employees, with their arrogant confidence, had no idea they were standing in front of a ticking time bomb, primed to detonate and shatter everything they held dear, their jobs, their reputations, even the bank itself. In just a few minutes, the woman they deemed unworthy of withdrawing her own money would turn their entire world upside down. Have you ever been judged solely by your appearance, before anyone even knew your name or your story? This tale will deliver the most satisfying example of instant retribution you've seen all year. If you believe everyone, regardless of race or circumstance, deserves to be treated with fairness and respect, leave a comment below saying, "Respect first," and hit that subscribe button now to catch the next twist. It all begins the moment Monique Jackson steps into Apex Trust's central branch, unassuming yet resolute, giving no hint of the formidable force beneath her modest exterior. Monique Jackson stood before the teller window at Apex Trust, her deep brown eyes unwavering despite the venomous whispers from the staff echoing through the space. Linda Voss, the branch manager, stood with her arms crossed, lips pressed into a thin line, clearly expecting a reaction, some outburst to escalate the situation further. "I've already told you," Linda said again, her voice now tinged with impatience. "We have protocols for transactions this large. You'll need to provide additional proof of the fund's origin, or better yet, come back when you're properly prepared." She tilted her head, offering a smile that didn't reach her eyes, as if doing Monique a favor with her helpful advice. But Monique didn't respond immediately. She calmly placed her bank card and ID on the counter, her slender fingers moving deliberately. "I've provided everything required by Apex Trust's policies," she said, her voice steady and firm, not a quiver in it. "This amount, $150,000, is within the daily withdrawal limit for my account type. So what's the issue, ma'am?" The question hung in the air, simple yet piercing, like a blade aimed at Linda's smug composure. The employees began to stir. The bespectacled man, his name tag read Ethan, raised an eyebrow, exchanging a glance with the high ponytailed girl, Sarah, who'd giggled earlier. "Probably a typo or something," Sarah whispered, loud enough for Monique to hear. Ethan nodded, sipping his coffee before adding smoothly, "Or she's trying her luck with some phone scam." Their laughter rang out again, bolder this time, as if they'd forgotten the woman they were mocking was standing right there. Meanwhile, Monique observed it all. The sidelong glances, the smirks, the subtle but loaded gestures. She noticed a white man in a tailored suit being ushered straight to the manager's office without delay, while an elderly Asian man with trembling hands sat in the corner, his ticket number in hand, waiting over 30 minutes. She saw a young Latino man in a work uniform asked for 2 extra forms of ID just to exchange small bills, while a white woman with a designer bag was served in under 3 minutes. It all unfolded before her eyes, a familiar play she'd seen too many times. 25 years ago, Monique Jackson had stood behind a teller window like this one, wearing a bank uniform with a trainee name tag, bowing her head to customers who barely glanced her way. She hadn't come from wealth or powerful connections. All she had was a razor-sharp mind, relentless drive, and a steel resolve that carried her from the bottom to the top of Apex Trust. From teller, she rose to loan officer, then branch manager, then regional director. She earned an MBA from Stanford, shattered revenue records in 4 different departments, and became known as the crisis fixer, the one sent to salvage struggling branches. 3 months ago, when Apex Trust's former CEO announced his retirement, the board faced a dilemma. Despite Monique's impeccable record and over 2 decades of service, some members hesitated. In closed-door meetings, they didn't say it outright, but the question lingered in their glances. Will our big clients accept a black woman representing the company? After a tense vote, Monique Jackson became the first black CEO in Apex Trust's history. In her inaugural speech, she vowed, "I will ensure every customer, every employee, and every community we serve is treated with absolute respect and professionalism. No exceptions." But behind those doors, Monique knew words alone wouldn't suffice. She'd been quietly tracking data, customer complaints swept under the rug, numbers revealing stark disparities in service quality across demographics at certain branches. This central branch under Linda Voss's management was a hotspot. On paper, Linda was a star, sky-high revenue, impressive new account rates. But when Monique dug deeper, she found buried customer feedback revealing the truth. Many, especially people of color, left feeling unwelcome. They didn't file formal complaints. They just quietly withdrew their money and vanished. Monique decided to see it for herself, not through reports or intermediaries, but with her own eyes. This morning, she'd walked into the central branch in plain clothes, a gray hoodie, dark pants, and a worn but tidy handbag. No elaborate makeup, no flashy accessories, just an ordinary woman, at least to those who didn't know her. She sat in the waiting area, pretending to check her phone, but actually noting every detail. The warm smiles staff gave a white businessman, the curt gestures directing an elderly black couple to wait. She timed it. 42 minutes passed. 3 customers who arrived after her were served, while she remained invisible. When she finally approached Sarah's window, the young woman's smile vanished instantly. "How can I help you?" Sarah asked, her tone flat, a stark contrast to the friendliness she'd shown the previous customer. Monique smiled faintly, sliding her ID and withdrawal slip through the glass. "I'd like to withdraw $150,000, she said, calm as if asking for change. Sarah blinked, glanced at the slip, then back at Monique, suspicion plain in her eyes. "That's a lot of money," she said, her voice loud enough for Ethan nearby to overhear. Ethan turned, eyebrow raised. "Pretty big," he chimed in. "You sure this account's yours?" Monique didn't answer right away. She simply placed her bank card on the counter, her gaze locking onto Sarah's. "Check it," she said, her voice quiet but carrying an undeniable weight. Sarah shrugged, typed something into her computer, then whispered to Ethan. Moments later, Linda Voss appeared, striding over with the air of someone wielding absolute authority. "What's the problem here?" she demanded. not to Sarah, but to Monique, as if she were the source of the disruption. The room began to notice, some customers turning to watch, an elderly woman clutching her purse as if Monique might cause trouble. "I just want to withdraw money from my account," Monique replied, still calm. Linda picked up her ID, examining it with deliberate slowness, then smirked. "150,000 isn't a small sum," she said, her tone dripping with false sweetness. "What do you plan to use it for, if I may ask?" The question, one never posed to any white customer making a transaction that morning, hung between them, heavy as an unspoken accusation. The tension in the bank lobby tightened. Linda Voss looked down at Monique, her eyes gleaming with the confidence of someone who'd never been challenged. Behind her, Sarah and Ethan exchanged glances, smirks tugging at their lips. They didn't know that, at that moment, they were digging their own professional graves. Monique took a deep breath, her hands tightening on her bag's strap. She knew the moment of truth was near, and when it arrived, none of them would be left standing. Linda Voss stood there, arms crossed, her gaze sharp as a blade fixed on Monique Jackson. "I'm afraid we can't proceed with this transaction," she declared, her voice now edged with triumph, as if she'd won an unnecessary battle. "You might try the check-cashing place downtown. They're more accustomed to handling cases like this." Her words, veiled as advice, hit like a neon sign, making the air in Apex Trust's lobby heavier than ever. A few nearby customers paused their business, their eyes flickering with curiosity and irritation toward Monique. A middle-aged man holding a phone muttered loud enough to hear, "Can we hurry this up? I've got things to do." But Monique didn't flinch. She stood tall, her deep brown eyes locked on Linda's, showing no fear or anger on her face. "I understand security concerns," she said, her voice still even, "but I've provided all required documentation. I've been a customer here for over 20 years. I request my transaction be completed now." Her calm, rather than diffusing the situation, seemed to fuel Linda's indignation. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper audible to those around. "Ms. Jackson, this amount doesn't align with your circumstances. Apex Trust has certain client standards, and I'm afraid you don't meet them." The statement was a bare-knuckled blow, so blatant it stripped away any pretense of Linda's deeper biases. Behind her, Sarah bowed her head, nervously shuffling papers, clearly uneasy but silent. Ethan, on the other hand, couldn't hide his amusement. He leaned against the counter, smirking, whispering to Sarah, "Probably just got some grant money and thinks she's rich now." His soft chuckle pricked the already taut atmosphere like a needle. Monique inhaled deeply, her hands releasing the bag's strap. She didn't respond to Ethan or Linda right away. Instead, she pulled her phone from her bag, a weathered leather one, a gift from her team when she'd been promoted to COO years ago. "Give me a moment," she said, her voice soft but commanding, then stepped aside, still in view. As she dialed, Ethan elbowed Sarah, mockingly mouthing, "Calling a lawyer? Or some rich boyfriend to bail her out?" Sarah didn't laugh, but she didn't object either, just watched Monique with suspicion. An older man in a postal worker's uniform sat in the corner, observing with weary eyes as if this scene were nothing new, just another day being black at a place like Apex Trust. Monique spoke into the phone, her tone shifting to professional. "Yes, this is Monique Jackson. I'm at the Central Branch. They're refusing my transaction." Ethan laughed louder, straightening up and mimicking her with exaggerated flair. "This is Monique Jackson." He pretended to hold an invisible phone, drawing chuckles from a few other staff. Linda, losing patience, stepped closer, her heels clicking sharply. "If you don't leave now, I'll call security," she said, her voice rising, her professional veneer now gone. "You're disrupting my branch." Monique didn't turn immediately, still on the phone, Yes, they're threatening security. I need you here now. She hung up, slipped the phone back into her bag, and faced Linda, her gaze calm but razor sharp. I'll wait, she said simply. Linda faltered, but quickly recovered. She turned to Ethan. Call security. I want her out. Ethan shrugged, reaching for the intercom, while Sarah stepped back, hands trembling. The room's atmosphere grew stifling, all eyes on Monique, some curious, some annoyed, some sympathetic, but silent. Linda crossed her arms, a triumphant smile spreading, certain she'd regain control. Then the double doors of Apex Trust's central branch burst open, slamming against the walls with a thunderous echo. Everyone jumped. Robert Grayson, Chief Operating Officer of Apex Trust's entire system, stormed in like an approaching tempest. His black suit was crisp, but his eyes blazed with fury. He stopped in the lobby's center, his gaze sweeping over Linda, Ethan, then settling on Monique. Stop this now! His voice boomed like an unassailable command, startling even Linda. She scrambled to regain composure, stepping forward with a forced smile. Mr. Grayson, what an honor to have you here. What's... But Robert cut her off, pointing at Monique. Do you know who this is? His question landed heavily, like a stone shattering Linda's self-assurance. She glanced at Monique, then back at Robert, her smile wavering. I don't understand. She's just a disruptive customer. Robert stepped closer to Monique, his demeanor shifting from rage to deep respect. He turned, facing Linda and the stunned staff behind her. This, he said, his voice low but clear, is Monique Jackson, CEO of Apex Trust, the head of this entire organization, your boss. The words exploded like a bomb in the lobby. Linda stumbled back, her face draining of color. Ethan dropped his coffee, the liquid splashing across the floor. Sarah covered her mouth, eyes wide with horror. 3 months earlier, in a 5-star hotel's lavish ballroom, Monique had stood on stage, accepting the symbolic key to Apex Trust from the board chairman. Linda had watched the ceremony via live stream with her team, clapping politely and offering hollow praise about progress. But today, she hadn't recognized, or had chosen not to recognize, the woman she'd just humiliated as the bank's CEO. Robert held up a tablet, its screen displaying security footage. We've been watching everything, he said, his voice icy. How you treated Ms. Jackson, how you've treated other customers. It's all recorded. This isn't just a miscommunication. This is systemic discrimination, violating company policy and federal banking laws. He replayed the footage. A white customer withdrawing $200,000 unquestioned, while Monique was grilled over every detail. The disparity was glaring. Linda stammered, "This is a misunderstanding. We were just following security protocols." But Robert interrupted, "Don't lie. We have footage of 3 other large transactions this morning. None were treated like this except Ms. Jackson." Ethan stepped forward, voice shaky. "I was just following Linda's orders." But Robert's glare silenced him. The doors opened again. 3 board members entered, their faces grim with resolve. Their presence made the lobby feel suffocating. Monique, silent until now, stepped forward, her gaze sweeping over Linda, Ethan, and Sarah. Linda Voss, Ethan Carter, Sarah Nguyen, she said, her voice low but commanding. You are terminated, effective immediately. Your actions do not align with Apex Trust's values. Linda opened her mouth to protest, but Monique raised a hand, silencing her. I can, and I have, she said simply. She nodded to the security guard, summoned earlier to remove her. Please escort them to collect their things and leave. As Linda, Ethan, and Sarah were led away, the lobby fell silent. Justice had been served, and Monique Jackson, once a scorned customer, now stood as a symbol of power and change. As Linda Voss, Ethan Carter, and Sarah Nguyen were escorted out of Apex Trust's central branch, The vast space sank into a heavy silence. Linda's heels clacked faintly, mingling with the murmurs of remaining staff and the stunned gazes of witnessing customers. The cardboard boxes holding their belongings, a few framed photos, a coffee mug, a small cactus, looked pitiful against the arrogant confidence they'd exuded moments before. The security guard, once ordered to remove Monique, now performed the opposite task with a neutral expression, as if he'd found new purpose in his role. Monique Jackson stood in the lobby's center, her eyes scanning the crowd, not with triumph or gloating, but with the calm of a leader assessing a problem to solve. Robert Grayson, the COO, stood beside her, tablet still in hand, a living testament to what had transpired. The three board members, Chairman Harold Bennett, Catherine Liu, and David Ortiz, remained present, their stern faces reflecting both respect and the weight of confronting their organization's truth. Monique stepped toward the remaining staff, who huddled like scolded students awaiting reprimand. "Today isn't just about three individuals' mistakes," she began, her voice ringing clear, devoid of anger but brimming with resolve. "It's about a culture that allowed those mistakes to become routine. A culture we will change, starting this very moment." The employees lowered their heads, some avoiding her gaze, others shifting uncomfortably, as if realizing what they'd ignored for too long. "Apex Trust exists to serve every customer with respect, fairness, and professionalism," she continued. "That's not just a slogan on the wall. It's the standard every transaction and interaction in this organization will meet from now on." As she spoke, Robert tapped his tablet, activating emergency protocols, revoking Linda's access, transferring temporary branch control, and sending urgent alerts company-wide. "Every branch, every department, every role here will be re-evaluated," Monique declared. "Not just by profits, but by how we treat all customers, no exceptions." Among the staff, a young woman, her name tag reading Maya, stood trembling at the group's edge. She'd been the first to take Monique's withdrawal request, and though she hadn't mocked her like Ethan or Sarah, she'd stayed silent as the situation escalated. Now, as Monique approached, Maya bowed her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice breaking. "I knew it wasn't right, but I didn't know what to do with Linda." Monique listened, not interrupting, recognizing this as a pivotal moment, not just for Maya, but for the branch's future. Standing up to wrongdoing, especially from those in power, is one of the hardest things, Monique said, her tone gentle but firm. But it's also the most vital skill we must learn. Today, you saw what happens when we stay silent. She paused, meeting Maya's eyes. "Maya, from this moment, you're the interim manager of this branch." A ripple of shocked murmurs spread through the staff. Maya blinked, eyes wide. "But I'm just—" "You're someone who recognized the wrong, even if you didn't yet have the courage to act," Monique cut in. "That's the starting point we need. You'll be supported, trained, and most importantly, you carry the perspective of someone who's seen the problem and wants to fix it." This decision later became part of Apex Trust's lore, a story retold in training sessions, proof that change begins with those who acknowledge mistakes. 3 days later, Monique stood at a podium during a hastily arranged press conference. Apex Trust's logo loomed behind her, flanked by board members, signaling a public reckoning. "Today, Apex Trust announces the Fair Banking Initiative," she declared, her voice strong and clear. "A $60 million program focused on anti-discrimination training, community outreach, and internal accountability systems." Cameras panned to the front row, where customers once mistreated sat. A businessman denied a loan despite a flawless record, a single mother rejected for premium services despite qualifying, an immigrant asked for unnecessary documents. "These individuals," Monique gestured toward them, "will join our Customer Fairness Advisory Board, ensuring real voices shape our policies." The press conference made national waves, not just for a major bank's public admission of bias, but for its tangible commitments. Revised staff evaluation criteria, customer experience audits by demographic, partnerships with civil rights groups to redesign training. In every Apex Trust branch, a new sign appeared. Every customer deserves respect and fair service. If your experience doesn't reflect this, call this number. Below was a direct line to Monique's office. 6 months later, Monique again donned plain clothes, quietly visiting branches, not to catch wrongdoing, but to see change take root. She saw staff greeting every customer warmly, regardless of their attire or appearance. She saw Maya, now a permanent manager, confidently leading her team with empathy and professionalism. Apex Trust didn't just regain customer trust, it became an industry model for social accountability. If you loved this story of justice, resilience, and transformation, hit like, subscribe, and share it so others can learn too. Because we all deserve respect, and people like Monique Jackson are proving it, one step at a time.